teaching about it, and this morning, for reasons that I hope will become obvious, I'd like to reverse that order. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what it is that we do read together on the seventh day of Pesach, and then chant some verses from Exodus 15. As Shira and I have been passing these past few weeks together at home with our children, we've had to become pretty resourceful when it comes to filling the time during the day, particularly for our older daughter, Hannah. But we have some old standards that we've been, not quite old, but sort of constants that we've been relying on. And one of them, of course, is the idea of spending the time together reading, which we do quite regularly with both of our girls anyway. The other day, Hannah asked me to sit down and read a book with her, and she asked to choose the book. And I was sort of failing when she came back with a children's book which retold the story of the Exodus. She clearly knew what it was, what the significance of that story was during this holiday of Pesach, and wanted to share that story together. And we did. We read this children's version of the Exodus story. And at the very end, the last picture was of the Israelites walking out of Egypt on their way towards the Midbar, towards the Promised Land. And Hannah was pretty unhappy with that ending. Why? Because, as we know, that's not where the story of Pesach ends. The story that we tell on Pesach ends not with just the Exodus moment of Exodus itself, but on the other side of Yam Suf, on the other side of the Sea of Reeds, after God performs a miracle for the Israelites and they walk through the dry land and the Egyptians who had been chasing them drown in the waters. There's a reason why I think we don't stop with just that moment of Exodus and insist on continuing the story through that moment, which we celebrate as the moment of redemption. And a lot of it has to do with what I believe is the exclamation point on this story, and that's what we read traditionally on the seventh day of Pesach. Keep in mind, of course, that while we are celebrating 8 days of Pesach in the land of Israel, the seventh day is the final day of the holiday, and so it serves as the kind of exclamation point that I was talking about at the end. So traditionally, what we read on the seventh day of Pesach is Shirat Hayam, the song that the Israelites sang after they had crossed through safely to the other side. And the reason that I think particularly that I'm drawn to this moment as the closing of this story is because, unsurprisingly, I tend to think in terms of my own history, my own love of musical theater. And really what this moment is the finale, the musical finale of this theatrical drama which unfolds through the story, beginning with the story of Moses approaching Pharaoh and asking to let the people go, and concluding with this rousing number that we all sing together. And before we chant it, I'd like to kind of remind us of why it is that this particular idea of singing together as a moment of closure is so important. When I was a student in a musical theater conservatory, my acting teacher, Alan Langdon, introduced our musical theater class with a powerful idea that I quite often share with people, which is that in musicals, we have kind of grown used to the convention of people just bursting out in song. But if you think about it in terms of what's actually happening at the moment, it's not just a convention. What my teacher taught all of us is that there are times in our lives when our emotion is so profound that words alone don't do the moment and the emotion justice. And so what we have to do is sing. But that's not it, right? Because in a musical, it's not just individuals expressing their own emotional state and sharing that through song. It is entire stages full of people. And what happens at those moments is something even more extraordinary, which is that different people simultaneously, spontaneously at that moment, not only did they begin singing together, but they begin to sing the same words at the same time. That the emotional experience is not an individual one, it is a shared one. And we know that it is a shared one because everybody is thinking the same thing and putting those same thoughts into words. That's the scene which happened after this miraculous moment of redemption, of salvation from God, when all of the Israelites were singing the same song together with Moshe. And as Jews, we know what a powerful idea this is, that we all sing the same songs together. For what gets us through the Seder, really, of a lot of us, are those moments of song. There can be some dry moments of rabbinic exposition in the middle, and sometimes we rush ahead. When is Dayenu? When are we going to sing V'hisha Amda? And those songs are transportative. When we start singing them, it takes us back not only to the moment that the song marks, but also reminds us that Jews around the world are singing that exact same song at that very moment. What's also incredibly powerful about song is that song is not, like all great art forms, is not a static thing. Sure, someone wrote the words to this beautiful poem, and we have put a tune to it. However, just because we see it in its original context doesn't necessarily mean that those who sing the song in the future see it the same way. A great example, the current example, if you go back to one of the most well-known musical theater songs that has a Jewish association, is the song Tradition from the beginning of Fiddler on the Roof, where the community of Anatevka sings about how in Russia, in Tsarist Russia, where there are pogroms, their lives are so perilous, it's almost like a fiddler playing a beautiful song on the roof of a building, and what keeps them going is their tradition. Imagine going to the theater, which we can't do now, but turning on Amazon Prime and watching Fiddler on the Roof now and thinking about what that song might mean in the context of this moment. That even though we are separated from each other, even though we have lost so many of the things that give us meaning in life, what we have managed to hold on to, however we can, are our traditions, are the rituals that we have found a way to preserve and maintain through this holiday of Pesach, even if we're doing it in an unusual way. The same is true for Shirat Hayam. Yes, when we read it, we see the literal meaning, the story of Pharaoh and his troops being drowned in the Sea of Reeds and the Israelites emerging on the other side. But today, as we sing this song, Pharaoh is not an Egyptian king. Pharaoh is illness. Pharaoh is loss. Pharaoh is loneliness. Pharaoh is isolation. But when we sing this song together and remind ourselves of the miracles that God performed for us in the past, we gain strength from the idea that we are singing this song as a Jewish people, and that our faith teaches us that Pharaoh and his armies will eventually be drowned, and that, God willing, sometime soon, the children of Israel and all people will be able to walk through safely to the other side of the sea. I'll chant now from Shirat Hayam, page 406 in the Eitz Chaim Chumash, if you're following along, Exodus chapter 15, verse 1. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kedishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Az yashir Moshe uvenei Yisrael et hashira hazot l'Adonai vayomru lemor, ashir l'Adonai ki ga'o